to come on and talk to you about writing, editing, publishing, and marketing better books. This week, for the first time in maybe 9-10 months, we have my favorite recurring segment here, which is our cover critiques. That's during which or for which we ask you folks, the viewers, the authors, to send in book covers that either you have designed or you've had designed for your books. Send them in, we'll pick a handful of them and get a professional designer to talk about them, talk about what works, what doesn't work, and give you a few practical tips for how to improve it and make it more suitable for the market, which is something that I always love talking about. We're going to kick this thing off in just a few minutes, so while we wait, please do go ahead and let me know where you are today, whether there are any particular book cover designs you've seen. You are my teacher's pets. Not really a teacher, but oh dear. Sorry, my thing just glitched out for a second saying, oh yeah, we're about to start this, even though I'm fairly sure I started this a minute ago. I think we're doing fine. But yes, first of all, if you could hit the like button, that helps us share this video out. More people will get to see it live. And also, just to let you know, we had about 600 people sending covers. So much range, so many great covers. So much stuff that we could talk about, but sadly, we only have time for about 20 designs today. We're not really going to have much of a Q&A because we're going to try to go through as many as we can in the time that we have. So if anybody in the comments asks, are they going to do mine? The answer is, we don't really know because for now, they're a secret to you and we don't have the capacity to accept any more submissions at this point. But thank you very much if you sent yours in. I really enjoyed looking through all of them. And I hope you'll get something out of this. Let's have a look. Sue Lick from Oregon Coast, book cover in design stage now, very exciting. Misty House from Amarillo, Texas. Marcus from the UK. Aidan from Rugby here in UK. Mark Roberts from Green Bay, Wisconsin. Go Packers. Abby, but for all. Oh dear. I'm seeing that if you guys can still hear me, let me know if I'm still running on or whether I'm getting some sort of connection issues here. I can't be certain either way, but judging by the YouTube screen I have, it looks like we should be fine. If it all sounds good, just give me a thumbs up and we'll get this thing started in just a minute. Jennifer says, I'm lagging a bit. There's been some buffering. Hopefully, it won't affect it too much. Yeah, I'm seeing some sort of errors with the app I'm using to stream this, but hopefully, you won't miss any of the big points. And if there's anything you miss, just hit me up on the comments here and we'll try our best to answer them as we see them. Thank you, Trisha Pimentel. I sound fine, she says. Anna says, I'm glitching but can be heard. So I guess as long as you'll be able to see the covers that we'll bring up on screen and you can hear myself and David, then everything should be sound as a pound. SJ Mine, some buffering, but assume it's just your terrible internet. I wouldn't assume too hard. It could be my terrible internet too. Okay. Oh, Alan says, greetings to any Welsh speakers. We've had Welsh people on here before. We had a first line that was sent in from a mystery book set in Wales, and there was a big argument about whether there was a typo in it. Turns out there was not. It was just Welsh. So glad to see our Welsh friends here. Quant Quill, great name. You can hear me fine. Rachel Thornton, thought it was terrible internet in France. Sean Staley, nice haircut, you say? Actually, yeah, I have had somewhat of another haircut recently. If you've tuned in, about 2 months ago, I had to shave it all off. My girlfriend's first attempt with the razors, with the trimmers didn't go so well, but she's gotten pretty good now, so shout out to Catherine. Okay. So it looks like we are now at 8 o'clock my time here in the UK, 3 p.m. on the East Coast, midday on the West Coast. It's going to be Central Europe, 7 o'clock, 12:30 in the morning in India, 3 a.m. in Hong Kong and Singapore, 5 a.m. in Sydney and Auckland. Might as well get this started. Okay, so please join me in welcoming David.
Hello. Hey, hello. Hello to the world. Hello to all book lovers out there.
Fantastic. Where are you right now, David?
I'm in Guilford, Connecticut, which is on the Connecticut shoreline. east of New Haven.
Okay. That's where Princeton is, or Yale?
No, Yale. Yale is in Princeton, New Jersey.
Ah.
Yale University is New Haven.
Okay, I've got a little slide deck here that I've just set up. It's taking a moment just to load. Give me a second to have that set up, and then I will happily take myself off camera and get the show on the road. So first of all, David, perhaps we could take this opportunity just to talk a bit about your own experience as a designer and your own experience with books.
Okay. I think it all starts for me with a love of the written word and taking that word and trying to create a visual that enhances and amplifies and crystallizes those words, the words of an author. I think it's quite an undertaking because books are often a labor of love for authors, especially independent authors that who have worked so hard, and it's all on their own, late nights, kitchen table, laptop, pounding out a novel or a nonfiction book. And so when I'm entrusted with that, it's quite an honor to have that, and I'm happy to take their work and expand on it and give it the platform and visuals that it deserves.
Cool. So I've pulled up a couple of the your designs that you sent over to me. Are these recent ones that you've done for Reedsy or elsewhere?
Those are actually a few years old. Yes, but there's some more current things that I've sent you. I took pains not to. I have some covers that I'm working on right now that I'm excited about, but I didn't want to post these, of course, to not respecting the privacy of the author since they haven't released the book yet.
Cool. These look great. Yeah, and so we sort of just put these on here just to let you guys at home know that David knows what he's talking about. Cool. Amazing. So, as I've said before, we got over 600 book covers sent in. We only have time to cover about 20, so without further ado, just going to cut to our first one here, which is Her Heart's Disappointment. It is a contemporary Christian romance novel, AIM/women's fiction. It continues Morgan's search for agape love in the newlywed phase. Now that Morgan is married, the honeymoon and newlywed life turn out to be less perfect than she imagined. So I guess it's a romance novel sort of about the anxious couple of steps you take after you get married. What do you think of this?
Okay, I just want to say that I'm going to base the majority of my critiques on the genre and what is it trying to be. Like a good film critic doesn't judge the film, next to Citizen Kane. They judge it within the genre. What is it trying to be? And within that genre, does it resonate with its target audience? So here we are in contemporary Christian. And I think this book this cover is successful. It shows the hands together. We see a ring, so there's the suggestion of marriage and a marital bond there. I like how the photo is cropped to just center on that clutching of the hands there. I like how the type sits within there. I like how heart is set apart from the other text with a sort of fresh and playful script. I like how the color of the text, although I think it could be a little deeper, I see the designer picked up this sort of salmon color or coral color from on the right here, that little circle there. So I like that touch of working towards this cohesion with color, that constraining it to a palette and reinforcing that.
Cool. We also pulled up some comp titles, because I guess one of the things we always sort of tell folks when they're looking to self-publish a book, which they have complete control over the cover that goes on their title, that goes on Amazon into a bookshop, that the first thing you really should do ideally is look at what you are competing against in that space. And so we have a couple of best-selling contemporary Christian romances as well. And just by sort of looking on Amazon or your bookshelves, you can sort of see a certain sort of trope here, right, David?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. We're focused on the couple, and typographically, it's very clean and welcoming. Nice color palettes. Again, what I was talking about with the first one, if we look at Slow Path to Peace here, notice how the designer has picked up the color palette of the landscape here, picking up the purple or the lavender for the text there, and then complementing that with a green, which sort of picks up, although her pants are more of a mint green, but we have a green, this sense of the environment. So I like how that on the A Love So Real on the far left as well, we see the cover text picking up a color of the palette within that image.
Yeah, for this one, like I do for Lila's one, I do like how it is very legible. What do you sort of make of the typeface that she's used for the series, the Love Is series and Lila Dilla? It seems a little bit rounder than some of the sort of serif fonts I'm used to seeing.
Yeah, I'm just noticing that now, and yes, that could use work. For one, it's too big. I do like to limit my covers to a small typographic set of fonts. So it looks like we have the serif here for Her Disappointment and Lila Diller, and they've used the same for that, and that would be fine. Although I think for a book series, it's more utilitarian, so that type doesn't need to be that dominant. I would have tucked that in. I would have stacked that text and tucked it in to this V-shape between their arms. So I would have said Love Is, and again, this would all be much smaller. Love Is series, and then book, and then probably 3, and maybe I would use the numeral 3.
We've got a question here from S. Hines. David, can you speak to the author name sometimes being so much larger than the book title?
I think that depends on the prominence of the author. For the authors that we usually find on Reedsy, if they're first-time authors, they haven't established a name for themselves yet. So the name might not be as prominent and be utilized as a selling point. If we're talking about, someone like Martin mentioned, James Patterson, that's a selling point, and or Stephen King, and it's interesting to see covers by authors like that, because King will be just so dominant, and the book title could be quite small in comparison to that. Yeah. So to answer that person's question, I think it all depends on the prominence of the author, and visual balance. And I think there's also a fake it till you make it quality, that even if you're not a prominent, well-known author, if you feature your name quite large, people might get the perception that, oh, this is someone who I should know. I'm going to check this book out.
So just, looking at these 3 titles we have here, I suspect one of these might be a first-time author. I'll let you guess who.
One in the middle is really quite understated. But we see on the left, Kimball Ray Jordan is very, very dominant.
Cool. We've got the next one here, the Panopticon experiment. A genetic mutation has made telepathic communication between people and mammals possible. 17-year-old orphan Flo has a mission to find her parents' killers and reveal the truth behind a series of disappearances across the city. So this is a science fiction young adult, so the protagonist is probably 15 to 18. What do you make of this one?
I'm drawn to the composition itself, the image composition. I think it's very nicely done. I like the monochromatic quality that they all have the same duotone. I like how the is that a cheetah that or jaguar head is facing one way, the woman's head facing the other way, and then sort of like this smoky quality. It's really an interesting visual. The other thing that I was drawn to about this is the typography. You'll find today that the brunt of my critique will be about typography, because I think it's too often an afterthought, and it really should be the thing that gets the designers their craft is applied mostly to the typography. And here we have a nice clean sans serif. I like how it's stacked, and they're sort of the I would have spaced out experiment, because my eye wants to see experiment the same exact width as panopticon. Again, it's just the craft of typography and paying attention to details and keeping everything nice and tight, so there's this cohesion with the design, with the typography, and the visuals. I also like the white background. Again, the minimalism and the cleanliness of it.
Lauren says, loving this cover. Unsure about the size of the Cyclus series. Seems too small. So the sort of tag at the bottom there.
Can you please remove Lauren's question so I can have a look at that? Thank you. No, see, I like that. I like how that's treated, and it's speaking to what I was talking about for the previous cover and how the series text was treated. And here it's nicely tucked underneath there. Again, it seems a little wider than Experiment, so I would want that to be all this nice tight rectangle there. That's my eye wants to see. I think if anything's too small here, I'm just noticing the word "the" is far too understated there and can be a little bit larger. I do like how it picks up that that sort of rose color of the illustration.
Cool. All right, moving on. Speaking of animal heads, we have Dark Matter, Terrian. Incredible accidents shake the peaceful spacefaring society of Terrian, one of them almost destroying Karuk's freighter. But how is his cargo involved? He struggles to reevaluate his life in the face of tragedy, and when his pack is endangered, will he follow his heart or his brain? So this is a science fiction novel from Alex A. Janik. What are your first thoughts on this one?
I don't think it works for the genre. Again, for what it's trying to be. The image looks like it could be executed better, and you know, when I see the dog's head in the space suit, it just seems like to be this incongruity. There isn't a subtitle that really explains it, so I think this is, for the audience this cover is trying to speak to, I think the first impression is sort of confusion. I like the very on brand, on genre typeface that was chosen for Dark Matter. But as I was saying earlier about typography, it's often an afterthought, and the typography looks like an afterthought here because it's just sort of there, and it's not working in harmony with the illustration. There's some interesting negative space around the figure here that could have been utilized. I would have taken that that title. As I said, it's an interesting on-brand sci-fi font, and made dark really big with matter tucked underneath it. And then Terrion could have been tucked underneath, perhaps above this ship and below the dog's nose there. So I think there's the gestalt is not great on this one. You know, the parts aren't making a cohesive whole.
Yeah, for me personally, I think having the sort of space character, the species of wolf people who are truckers, doesn't quite fit into the genre. It's, I don't know, when I first saw it, I thought, oh, this is like a comedy about space dogs, and then I started imagining dogs eating in zero G, and then I think by the look of the synopsis, I think it's more of a sort of epic, and so I pulled a couple of comps here. In terms of things that sort of have the same sort of scale. These are like recent ones, Children of Time and John Scalzi's book, Collapsing Empire, and then a recent cover for Dune, which I think all show sort of planetary stuff, interplanetary stuff. They don't really show the characters or like sort of costumes or whatever. What are you sort of noticing from these ones, David?
They just all have that strong cohesion that I was talking about. The relationship between the typography and the image. They also have that tight, constrained color palette that I was talking about with earlier covers. We have a prominent green color palette, green, and then this, that rich orange with the darker, almost black there. And notice how well the white type pops off of that. Really nice. I mean, I think for for a sci-fi reader, these really resonate with you and these speak to you, and you can't wait to open these up and read these. The middle cover here, I'll just point out to go back to the participants' question about author prominence. We see that middle one there shows John Scalzi, very prominent, and the title is very, very small comparison to that. But I don't know that author, but I assume he's someone of an author of prominence within the sci-fi genre.
Someone apparently of greater repute than Frank Herbert, who in this version gets the
Who's this Frank Herbert guy? What's he done?
But I think this also comes back to our sort of earlier points of, one of the first instincts an author should have is to see what exactly is out into the market. Because, when everybody is looking through Amazon or on the shelves, they want a cover that looks somehow familiar so that, immediately when they see it, when they pick it up, they kind of know what realm they're in. And for me, the one for Dark Matter, I think the space gives off a certain impression, but, I mentioned that I thought it was a bit of a comedy. Someone mentioned Spaceballs. He does look a bit like Barth from Spaceballs. But yeah, so I think, something closer to this might be a decent starting point. And, as you said, they're very impactful. But thank you, AJ. I know you're on here somewhere. Okay, the next one sort of along a similar vein, we have Infinity Evolution. Aureus contends with his metaphysical form as an alien virus threatens to transform him into a creature of hate and rage. He and his entourage travel to the home of an alien race, a planet of sunny and yellow and icy white, where he communes with an ancient sentient tree and discovers the depths of his stunning evolution.
I think this works for a sci-fi cover. The great color palette, the black and the blue, interesting visual. I'm not really sure what it is, but it just has that sci-fi glowing orb feel to it. So it will really speak to the sensibilities of a sci-fi reader. The title, I like how the title is nice and dominant up there. It's doing that stacking thing that I was talking about, that the words are occupying this geometry, this rectangle, that infinity and evolution have the same width. I think the only part that there could have been better care shown is in the author, which looks like a different font. So my question would be, why not continue this sans serif condensed, very geometric font for S. Burns Jr. on the bottom there? It just comes, it's just sort of taking away from the craft of it. It's like It's like if you purchased a really nice piece of furniture, but you noticed on one side they wasn't fully sanded or the varnish dripped or something. You know, it's just want to see that overall care go into the craft of a cover design. Also, the series text at the top there, it seems like it could have given a little bit more prominence. I think that you need to find the sweet spot there between what I was talking about with that first cover, where it was much too large, and this looks just a little too small.
Cool. We had a question earlier. I'm struggling to find it, so apologies that I can't bring it up just now. It's about the when you're dealing with a book cover that maybe is going to find its greatest prominence in somewhere like Goodreads or on Amazon. What is the sort of importance of what actually can be read in thumbnail size? So going back to one of our early ones, like with the Panopticon experiment, is it essential to have the author's name if he or she is not a massive brand, or is it basically focused just on the title as long as they can pick that one up?
Yeah, that's a challenge, that you want your cover to read as a thumbnail on Amazon or other platforms. And that kind of thumbnail that's easily read at a small size usually is best for a certain genre, like thrillers or crime dramas that are going to have this, or sci-fi that are going to have large dominant type that's easily read at a distance. The challenge is for a fiction author who's looking to do something more like contemporary or literary fiction, or just a genre that they don't want their title to scream at the reader, they want it to whisper at the reader. So that's a challenge, and when confronted with that kind of challenge, I think it's best to err on the side of making the cover the way that the author feels is right and the designer feels is right, and not being overly concerned with if it's not the best working thumbnail.
Cool. I have our next one here. We're dabbling in adult paranormal romance. Cali is a sassy detective known for her attitude and her ability to endanger her partners. While investigating a senator, she stumbles upon vampires and a canister, embroiling herself in a diabolical plot older than her grandfather. So I guess it's like an urban sort of thriller mystery with vampires thrown in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I definitely feel that. I think this is a well-done image composition. It was probably 3 separate images in which they took the woman, maybe 4, the woman, the moon, the birds, and then the city. And it's a well-executed image composition, putting those all together. And I think it speaks to an audience of this genre, that it has this sort of air of mystery about it in the city, an attractive woman, all has all this stew of the elements that they're looking for in this fiction. I think there are too many typefaces going on here. The typefaces that are here could be crafted a little better. I would like to see Huntress larger. It sort of doesn't sit with me that well that the author's name is of a wider width than the title. Again, if this is, I don't know this author, if this is an author of certain prominence, perhaps that's justified. But so I think this is a case of a very strong visual in which the typography is a bit of an afterthought and could have been crafted better.
Cool. People in the comments are mentioning that those are birds and not bats. Maybe the birds figure into the plot somehow, or maybe it's harder to find stock images of bats.
Yeah, good point that they don't look like they're nocturnal birds. But perhaps, you know, perhaps you can't ask a paranormal novel to stick to reality.
Cool. Yeah, but I like this one. It's yeah, you sort of know what you're getting when you see this one. It's sort of, yeah, really, you know, probably from the title, it's going to have some sort of vampire-y type thing. It has some sort of urban fantasy element to it. Cool. Next up, we have our first non-fiction one, Snail Guide to Cursive Writing Practice by Christine Richards. It's a workbook. I won't read the synopsis because it's pretty much all there on the cover. So what do you make of this one?
I just really like this, that it was really clean. It's an interesting visual. To me, it has a real retro vibe to it. I guess for contemporary middle school students, they wouldn't pick up on that. But this just looks like something like almost mid-century modern about it to me. The cleanliness, perhaps I'm thinking of, which is probably the intent of cursive writing guides when I was in elementary school. I like the color palette. The type works well. I like how the blue is picked up there, and we have this coral salmon color again that's used for the bottom and for the arrows. So this has that cohesion, that gestalt I was talking about with some other covers, where it just feels really tight.
Cool. Yeah. Sorry, people are sort of, I think they're quite liking it. So, sorry, yeah, just having a look at the comments go past there. But yeah, so in terms of, you know, you were talking before about in those sci-fi covers, there tends to be like one or two sort of, you know, really prominent colors. Is there sort of like a sort of magic number that you find once you sort of start expanding your palette into like 3 or 4 or 5 different primary colors or, you know, main colors, things just get too busy?
Absolutely, yeah. I would say 2 to 3, and you know, within those colors, perhaps different shades of them, you know, can expand the palette. But it all depends on what the intent is. You know, perhaps the book, there needs to be this bold, multi-colorful image or visual.
Cool. Yeah, and one thing that I sort of have noticed with a few of the ones that were submitted, some authors choose to put by before their author name. From your experience, is that something that is common or is sort of standard or acceptable or taboo?
I usually delete that. I'm always striving for minimalism, so it's really not necessary. You see an author's title there. You know, anything, you know, anything that can be stripped away to get to the essence of a clean, tight design, that's what I'll do. So I don't think I've ever done a cover with by on it. I've always talked the author out of it if they insist on it, because again, it's really not necessary. We understand that the author's name is there and that they are the author of this work.
Shift with Mary V suggests maybe a snail mail guide, but don't you see the big A here at the top? That took me a while to sort of catch that one as well.
Oh yeah.
So I think it could be something that I love the sort of design element of it, but in terms of it functioning as a part of the title, it sort of gets a bit lost there.
Yeah, I'll allow it though. Good catch, Mary V.
Okay, next up we have another non-fiction one. So Dad, How Did You Get to Be CEO by Gary Huff. It's, I think, framed around me. Just hold for a second. We've had I think a bit of a buffering glitch. I think if everything seems fine, I think we're good to go again. Yep. Yeah, so what do you think of this one?
I like how clean and simple it is, and it's it just has a very welcoming quality to it. The big, very simple, but very, very strong. The typeface reminds me of Dr. Seuss books. So I think that really ties into this father son and hearkening back to childhood. It looks like that typeface used for Dr. Seuss titles. So there's a childlike quality to it that I think is very welcoming without being infantile at all. The ways I would improve this are, I think the color palette is a little too muted. I would have used a darker background color to make that speech bubble pop more, and then put Gary Huff, the author title, and other title, the other text there in white. And the other critique is the speech bubble could have been executed just a little bit better, and that I find this jagged point there where leading to the mouth. That would have been much better if that was softened into a nice curve, which would be more like a comic book speech bubble.
Some of the questions here sort of is along the sort of suitability of this for the target audience, because it has that sort of Seussian vibe to it. Although this is a book very much specifically aimed at people who want a C-suite career, who want to be CEOs. So it's a business leadership book.
Okay, so
that's not for children at all.
But is it meant to for someone mid-career, or is it meant, do you know, for like a recent graduate?
I sort of get the feeling it's probably the same people who would buy a lot of other sort of executive type books. But I feel he's framed it in the sort of rich dad, poor dad kind of framework, where it's like, it's supposed to be, I think it sort of creates a feeling that is a bit fun. Things that I wish my father had told me. But it is a bit, the places we'll go. I've pulled a couple sort of comps in the same sort of space that also use like the sort of word bubble motif here. The one on the left is Simon Sinek. I think I mentioned him before, very sort of popular in this space. The middle one is a book on talking about race that I think a lot of people are adopting within an HR perspective. And then, so those two use a bit of a speech bubble type thing. How do you feel this sort of differs from what Mr. Huff did for his?
Yeah, there's certainly, more of a maturity and a seriousness to these, even if, the middle one here with using a speech bubble kind of makes it a little more welcoming. I think Mr. Huff's book could still utilize a speech bubble concept, but now that I know who its target audience is, that I would stylize that speech bubble to be more corporate looking.
Yeah. Some people have complimented the speech bubble here. It's something I've seen on Shutterstock so many times. I think it's people use it for a lot of PowerPoint presentations. But cool. Let's move on to the next one. This is Dangerous Crossing. In the mystery suspense thriller space, journalist Eddie Mayers is used to tough investigations and has won acclaim for his efforts in the past. But his probe into what appears to be a simple blackmail case drags him into a treacherously unfamiliar underworld in Dangerous Crossing. What do you make of this one? It seems to be like a single image, do you reckon?
Yeah, this looks very, very tight to me. Not a lot of fonts going on. It looks like the same font used for the title and the author's name. The sort of rich color palette is brought into the title. I like how there's a gradation to the word dangerous, and it looks like there's a bit of one to crossing as well, which nicely ties in the haziness of that what looks like a Western United States sky, or it could be Australia perhaps. So I think this has a tightness too. And is Is that Mark? Can you help me out? What is the text underneath the title there? Is that a quote?
That's a shout line. In an underworld where human life has little value, who can he trust?
Okay. All right. So that's a bit of a tagline. Okay. Now that I know it's a tagline, I don't know if it were a review, I think its off-center placement could be more justified. But since it's a tagline, I think I would have taken it out of all caps and perhaps centered it.
Okay, so for taglines, are there sort of like general principles? Are they, I guess, they're probably going to be quite tough to read within the thumbnail format. But is there sort of generally a place where they sort of best lie, and how are they sort of treated differently to testimonials or quotes?
Okay, well, first I would say for the usage of one, I think most fiction books don't need it. I like the little a novel, attached to a fiction book. I like that touch. I don't think most fiction books, again, depending on the genre, need a tagline or a subtitle. Nonfiction, yes, because the title usually needs to be explained, and by their nature, nonfiction books need to inform and elucidate. So I think a subtitle or a tagline is definitely necessary for a nonfiction book. For a fiction book, something like that, which you just read, seems more like a movie poster to me, and which is necessary at in a movie theater and in a cinema, at that point of purchase, that to get people interested in an upcoming movie. But for a novel, I usually don't think it's necessary, and in this case, I just think it's adding a little bit of clutter into what is a otherwise gorgeous sky there.
Cool. Haley here asks, would you say 1 to 2 fonts should be used on the cover? What is your rule of thumb? How many different typefaces should we?
I think that's a good rule of thumb, Haley. Yes, 1 to 2 fonts, even one font, but using the whole family of fonts, all the weights and the different forms of that font. So a bold, a medium, a book or regular weight, a lightweight, and then an italic as a different form, staying within the family to maintain and achieve that typographic cohesion.
Cool. Yeah, someone asked whether it says at the bottom, published by Speaking Volumes, whether it is normal to have that on a book. I would say no. It's probably something that Speaking Volumes has probably insisted on for stuff they've published, which is a bit cheeky.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, moving on to the next one. I'm conscious of time. This one is The Summer Festival is Murder. Former Washington, D.C. attorney Felice Bowes knows that she and her husband are fish out of water in their new home, a very small town on the coast of Oregon. Welcomed by some, viewed with suspicion by others, so on and so forth. A murder is afoot. They are first suspects and then investigators. Can they catch a killer before irreparable harm is caused to an already fragile community? So yeah, obviously in the murder sphere.
I think the image is strong. I like all that black there, and just the sense of a carnival or an amusement park at the top there, and then we see legs that we could assume the person's either deceased or resting. But the typography for this one, again, just feels like an afterthought, and it doesn't do justice to what is a strong visual, and it's not speaking to the mystery genre at all. The choice for the word murder is just too casual feeling to me, and it doesn't have the weight that is necessary. So I would have taken murder and put it in sans serif condensed font and made that really large, going across the width there. And then Summer Festival, the hierarchy would be Summer Festival would be a little bit smaller than that. Perhaps a complementary font, something that maybe complements. So again, another sans serif condensed or a different weight within that type family, or contrasting that with perhaps a serif and putting Summer Festival. So the hierarchy would be Murder, Summer Festival, then the articles the and is would be much smaller.
Yeah, because I like your point about the murderers. The choice of font here, it almost feels like those romance novels we saw at the beginning.
Yeah, it's just,
how love would be in cursive.
Yeah.
Cool. I sort of picked a comp for this one because the synopsis sort of made me think a bit of Little Fires Everywhere, which is sort of the big read of last year. Sort of has the same sort of suburban mystery vibe to it. But I guess it sort of shows like, you know, an opposite end of the spectrum for, you know, how a design like this could go. But this is also like an oil painting as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This is a very strong cover and a very popular cover. It's one that several authors have sent to me as an example of something they like and the vibe of it that they like. I think this is also a good example of what I was talking about before, is that this doesn't really work great as a thumbnail if we brought this down to a thumbnail size. But it doesn't need to, and I appreciate how the designer didn't, you know, make Little Fires big and everywhere as it's, you know, screaming at you, which would be appropriate for a different like thriller sort of or crime drama genre, but for here it's much more understated, and there's just the sophistication to this, and typographically it's you know, it's just as good as it gets. The designer used the same typeface, and there's this equal weight, the same size for the author's name as the title, and a novel, as I was talking about before. I like that little touch of just tossing that in there. So the tertiary text here, New York Times bestseller, a novel, and then other works by the author below are treated very sophisticatedly, very elegantly, in relation to the larger text.
One thing I want to bring up with the this one, a mystery novel by Jill M. Lyon. It's sort of tucked sort of at the bottom right-hand corner. It's the sort of placement I would sort of associate with a textbook almost. Is that something you would normally see for a lot of fiction, maybe?
No, I think that's too small. I would, you know, in this case, you would have to put the author's name over the figure's legs, and I think that can be done successfully, elegantly. So I would do that, because there it's just too much of an understatement, the author's name. And again, I would, you know, strip away the unnecessary elements here, and a mystery novel by just seems really wordy and unnecessary. The genre, the visual of the cover should say mystery novel. And once again, you don't need the word by, because if we see the author's name there, we know that they're the author of this work.
Okay, I'm noticing the time right now, so I'm thinking we might quick fire the next few. Okay. This is No Moral Compass, a southern mystery thriller. Two sisters fall in love with the same man. One sister wins his heart. The other sister has no moral compass and an obsession for him to love only her. Cool. So this falls into the southern mystery thriller genre, which I tend to sort of conflate a bit with cozy mysteries. What do you make of this one here?
Interesting visual, strong visual. I liked the incorporation of the title on top of the visual like that, as if it's part of that bandage across the eyes. But the pastel blue background just seems too soft. It doesn't say mystery to me. It almost says, you know, vacation romance, and that's further strengthened or undermined whichever way you want to look at it, by the other typeface choices here. A novel by, again, the word by is not necessary, just seemed too casual, and the author's name just feels too fresh and free and light. It doesn't seem like Southern mystery. It doesn't seem like heavy. And then we have a tagline here, which is probably a little too big and maybe unnecessary.
Is it also a bit odd that it's underneath the author's name? It makes it sound like Jackie London is the puzzling parts of a woman.
Yes, good point. Is that modifying the author, or is it modifying the title?
Cool.
So yeah, what's anchoring everything of this cover, all this text here, could be rethought.
Cool. I also pulled a couple of other sort of Southern mysteries. Just had a look around Amazon to see what was selling in that space, and they all tended to have quite a similar feel to them. In this case, they tend to have this sort of like flattened illustration look to it. Just to sort of, yeah. When you see that, what sort of tone are you imagining, David?
Well, these look really playful to me and whimsical. So, perhaps I'm not as familiar with this genre. But maybe that's the intent of this genre, that there's almost kind of a whimsical wink, wink. They're going to be dead people in this book, because it almost has the look of a middle school chapter book to me, with this flat illustration that you talk of.
Yeah. So yeah, if Jackie, if you're watching this one, I think Southern mystery is what you put down for this one, or Southern mystery thriller. The sort of term I think is sort of associated with something more cozier, sort of baking pies, living in a van, that sort of thing. So maybe potentially reconsidered there. Moving on to the next one here. This is Certain Reprisal, a John Doe thriller by Kevin Macklin. A police officer goes to trial for multiple sexual assaults but gets acquitted. After he's reinstated to the PD, the women who testify against him start coming up missing. So I sort of pulled a couple of comps for this one. They sort of felt like they were going down the sort of James Patterson, Lee Child road. The idea of like a silhouetted figure, a main character or the antagonist perhaps, and a moody cityscape.
Yes, great mood to the visual there. I like how the typography is all the same typeface. Perhaps a little variety could have been introduced with a different weight of that typeface. Perhaps the author's name could have been a larger weight, and it wouldn't be overbearing because of its size. The author's name could be moved up a bit. You always have to watch when you're putting type on images, that you have a field, an image field that isn't too busy, and the color is of similar hue and value, that the type is going to pop off of that sufficiently. So here there's like a little flare, a brightness flare right on that M. So I would have tucked that up so it's over the darkness. That M would be over the darkness of that hand. At the top, we see that the series text is getting lost again, because we have some really light areas of the image there. So I would have made that text smaller, and I would have put a band across the top. I would have put a dark band, and brought the transparency of that, brought the opacity down, so that we see some of the image behind it. So it's not a overbearing black band, but just serves the purpose of setting that series text off.
Cool. Would you have chosen a different color for the font? Okay, because I'm just noticing, as you said, there's like points here where things just get lost. The John Doe thriller tends to blend into the building here a bit for me. The title does seem to pop enough, but so many other places where it's really
certainly Reprisal probably would have worked better in white. I noticed someone's question here when I was talking about weight of the typeface. Yes, that means thickness and thinness of the strokes, bold, medium, book weight, or light or thin.
Yeah, and do you think, yeah, for me, like the contrast really isn't there. It's a little bit muddy compared to, you have like the Lee Child one where there's so much contrast there. It sort of draws your eye and everything seems a bit clearer. This one feels like it's through like an old lens or something.
True.
Cool. I'll move on quickly to our first middle grade one. This is Heart of the Island. Two friends go on the greatest adventure to find a lost diamond called the Heart of the Island. They must overcome their fears, face spooky bat-filled caves as they take on the quest to find the treasure.
I like this for the genre. We have an illustration of what I presume are the characters and the setting. So it's giving a lot of information about what's inside the book, which I think it's great for this age group, this age of readers. What I find with working with authors sometimes is sometimes authors want to be too literary with their covers, and I think for an adult reader or even a young adult reader, they don't need to be have their hand held like that, or that a scene from the book or a character necessarily has to be the visual of the cover. I tend to like to create more of a vibe or a feeling, and let the reader create the images in their head, which is one of the unique things about reading, is that the visuals don't have to be provided for you, that you're conjuring them in your head. But back to this book, I think it's a well executed illustration for this genre. I like how they're sort of coming towards the reader. I like how the title is it's sort of playful typography that's fit within that mountain shape there, and I like how it's behind, so that we get a sense of depth with this illustration.
Cool. People in the comments are saying, you said there were only two friends. Why are there three kids there? Turns out over the course of the story, they make a new friend. Next one's another middle grade one, Voms. Enzo Ruger is fresh off the bus in front of the imposing obsidian spike, ready to embark on an exciting life of evil minionry as the latest recruit of Voms, the villainous organization of mad scientists. It's like, seems to be pencil color style, or is it watercolor perhaps?
Yeah, again with repeating my same points for the previous book. I think it's great for the genre. The illustration style is a little bit more sophisticated to me, that I think it's maybe targeting for that middle grade reader who is ready to graduate to something more sophisticated. I like how the text again is integrated within the illustration. Great cohesion here, and it just looks like it's going to speak to this genre, and it's something that an 8 to 11-year-old would want to pick up.
When you have an illustrated cover like this, sometimes I see the titles tend to be laid on digitally, so sort of make it look, I don't know, stand out in some way. I very rarely sort of see it directly illustrated onto the cover itself. Is that quite common?
I think it's common for certain illustrators who like to incorporate that, because their style of lettering is integral to the illustration itself. I see someone asked about the author's name, and I don't see it. Is it down there?
Yes, right at the bottom. A Chudmore story by Artavelli, so quite small.
Yeah, so that could be pumped up, because it's just too small. It's too under.
Yeah, likewise. Also, I think the acronym Villainous Organization for Mad Scientists is written into the actual title of Voms, but is very small. I can only see it because my picture is enormous.
Mm-hmm. So perhaps that whole flowing ribbon there could just be taken and expanded to the fuller width. It would cover a little bit more of the figures, but it looks like there's some headroom there that they could have been moved up, just to give some more prominence to the title, subtitle, and author.
Cool. Hopefully these are digital watercolors. Otherwise, any sort of edits might be a bit difficult at this point.
That's true.
Cool. Swiftly on to the next one. Literary fiction, The Journeys We Wander. Follow the wanderings of Alan, an aspiring journalist, as he investigates a curious murder while awkwardly stumbling through love affairs, a dull job, and existential crises.
Yeah, great visual. Love the dichotomy of the woman on top and the man on the bottom, and the way that the space is broken up with this sort of zigzag. So there's this depth. I like how a novel is tucked in there. But if I have one critique, and this is going to be the theme that people are going to take away from this talk, is typography as an afterthought, and not seeing the craft of the design, of the cover design, all the way through, and paying attention to details, because the treatment of the author's name feels like an afterthought to me. Maybe it's the same serif typeface as a novel. It's hard to say. I like how it's tucked under the chin there, but it just doesn't feel like it feels like it's detracting from the gestalt, from the cohesion of what the rest is a very strong design.
Okay, I'm sort of looking at the clock here, David. You okay to stick to do maybe 3 more or so? Sorry, are you okay, David, to hang around to do a couple more?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Sure. Moving to the next one. Good. This is a memoir, Sandal Seas. After Caitlin loses her father, I imagine that's author Caitlin Dawn Thompson, she struggles facing a new adversary in her stepfather. Can the heroes of Caitlin's faith teach her to love again? Will she find where she belongs in God's story and find redemption? Ooh, for that synopsis, there's a couple of echoes of Find that you might want to iron out, but you get the idea. What do you make of this one?
Strong visual of the lighthouse and the mood and the long exposure of the photography. I like the child and the gesture of the child. I'm not sure what is she leaning on there. Oh, is that a soldier?
That's a soldier. That's his.
Okay. Wow. Okay. I think that works. There's a nice gradation. At first, I wasn't sure. So maybe. I would say in the feathering, in Photoshop of where I'm sure this image was composed, I would have allowed to seen more of the soldier's helmet there. So that speaks as soldier, because first I wasn't sure if that was a human, and then I thought, is it a robot or something? So I wasn't sure. So I would have just wanted to see a little more identifying qualities of the soldier there. When I first saw this, I thought, why is the O and OR so large? Why would you want to give such prominence to an article? And then I realized that it's SOS. So I do like the that typographic play there. I'm not crazy about the subtitle font. I like the sort of casualness and the welcoming quality of it. It feels friendly, but it's too condensed and too thick, too hard to read. There's so many better sort of loose contemporary scripts that could have been used in that case.
Cool. So there was a quick question about all caps or title case when it comes to doing covers. Titles, I mean.
I think it depends. I usually like to do one or the other, because as I touched upon earlier, I'm always looking for this geometry. So if a title is all lowercase or all uppercase, it has this, it occupies this geometric space, this rectangle, that everything is the same height, instead of, up and downs of initial cap in titles. But again, it depends on the title and how it feels.
Okay, we have a next one here, Shadowblade. Ariel needs the power of the Shadowblade to rescue her sister and defend her country from a savage invasion. But can she go through this deadly alliance without becoming a ruthless blade adept, feared and hunted by the elite Eldrin Kingsguard? So this is in the YA epic fantasy space as well. First of all, what are your first impressions of this as an image?
As an image, I like the color palette, and I like the white typography popping off of it. The execution of the illustration doesn't seem like it's fully there. The rendering, it's just like a notch below super professional of the illustration style that it's trying to compete with and be in company with.
Yeah, I've pulled a sort of couple of comps because, I sort of get what you're saying. This looks like a very good CG model in a video game from about 3 years ago, perhaps.
Yeah.
But the sort of space it's in probably sees covers a bit more like this. I pulled two just from looking on Amazon at stuff that was popular in the space. And then Six of Crows, of course, is massively popular YA fantasy as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I don't think the illustration needs to look necessarily more realistic. I mean, it's obvious it's an illustration, and that fits within the genre. But just like the gesture feels a little awkward, especially her left elbow and the hair, and it's just not fully there. Typographically, I think Shadowblade works well. It's a condensed serif, which we don't see as much as a condensed sans serif. Again, an afterthought in the typography of the author's name. It looks like J. Aspen is Times Roman, when why isn't it the same condensed serif as the title or the subtitle there?
Yeah. I think the thing I quite like about the other ones here is it's fairly simple. They have all these like particles or clouds or something in the background, so it focuses on the character. This one, there seems to be the wolf there. The perspective feels a bit odd. The druid or the statue heels, everything seems to all be in focus at the same time.
Yeah, so there could be some more depth there.
Cool. All right. We just have a couple more. I think we can make them through. Be Smart in Real Estate. Genre is nonfiction. It's intended for home buyers, home sellers, real estate agents. It's all sort of there on the cover.
Yeah, so there's just too much going on here. The typography is not strong and dominant, and it's just a clip art stew, and it's just too much for the mind to process, and it's just detracting from what I think is important is for a nonfiction book, and that is evoking the authority of the author. So, we want to have put our trust when we buy a nonfiction book, when it's informative or elucidating or history or anything. We want to feel the authority of why are we listening to this person? Why are we reading their book? So if you want to bring up the comps that I quickly did a redo of. So these are just my quick comps just to make that type nice and dominant so it stands out. The one on the left is very commercial. Had I had more time, I would have chosen an image that didn't have dormers in the roof. So you see this, I'm breaking one of my rules of what I talked about before about having a color field or an image field with not too much detail so that type can pop. And you see that estate gets a little lost there. But I think this cover works very well in a commercial setting. You can see that in your, in your local bookstore and You could see it appealing to someone. I think it evokes authority of the author, like, oh, this person knows what they're talking about when it comes to real estate. Another example, another take on the right here, which reads much better because we have a nice open color field. It's much more whimsical. This image that I found that has these rooftops in different colors. So there's this graphic quality to it, and its simplicity that I think is strong, that again feels commercial and feels authoritative, and something that if you're in the market for buying or selling your house, that it's going to speak to you and resonate with you, and you're going to pick it up and purchase that book.
Cool. Douglas Trimboli asks, should an author of a non-fiction post their postgraduate degrees, put their postgraduate degrees on the cover?
Dennis, I would say if it's relevant, or if it's not. For instance, I'm currently working on a medical thriller by an author who is a doctor, and he has the MD next to his name on the cover. And he wants it to be there, and I didn't argue against it because it's a medical thriller, so it sort of lends to his authority that he sees the inner workings of a hospital that he works at, and he's crafted this this thriller around his specialized knowledge. So if the person's professional titles are relevant, then I say yes, absolutely.
Miko Zen asks, I want to know how to do a shadow on the font. Is it just a drop shadow?
Yes, so that can be done in InDesign. I usually create craft and compose images in Photoshop, and then bring them along together with type in Adobe InDesign. And for instance, the drop shadow on real estate that you see here, which I added to make that pop a little more, was done in InDesign, and it's quickly going under effects and adding that to text.
Before we go into the last one, there's been a question that popped up a couple of times. Here's one from, oh no, sorry, Raven 4. It's not the one I meant. I guess I have to say it out loud. Any advice for biographies? I guess that's always going to be a tough one, because your mind would sort of default to an image of the subject of the biography.
Yes.
I skipped over that. I might as well bring back up, which was the Mad Mike Hoare, the legend, a biography, a mercenary who was involved in some stuff in Africa. So I guess, yeah, the standard must be get an image of the person and work around that.
Yeah, I think this has a great quality to it. I'm not familiar with Mad Mike, but and I assume this is his son or perhaps grandson, because it said that he was from World War II. There's a lot of type going on here that I think it works for the genre, but I think this will resonate with readers of this. I just see this and I want to know more about Mad Mike the legend. It has a great energy and vibe to it.
So, yeah, have you done many biographies or memoirs yourself? Memoirs, I think, would they less commonly have an image of the subject of the author themselves in the front, or is that fairly standard?
I think it goes to the prominence of the subject. If it's a biography on someone well known, or even someone who isn't that well known, I always think a cover image, yes, is strong to give the reader that immediate connection with the subject matter. I've done several memoirs that in some cases the cover might have a picture of themselves, or depending on how they feel, or it might be an all text cover, something very simple, elegant, and understated, depending on what they're trying to evoke.
Oh, yeah, someone's pointed out the a sort of darkened box around a biography.
Well, that certainly makes that pop more. It's probably too big, and I think I would have put that in the sans serif so that the legend is in that distressed typewriter font. Stands out more. Nothing detracts from it.
Cool. Yeah. Oh, and there's a quote from Frederick Forsyth, who's I'm not sure he's big over in the States, but he's a big name in the sort of military thriller stuff, especially back in the 70s and 80s. So I guess that'll be a big appeal for fans of that one. And then that brings us to the very last one here, The Engineer's Wife. The synopsis that was sent to me: she built the Brooklyn Bridge, then was lost in its shadow. And it's a historical fiction based on a true story.
I love this one. I think I love it so much that I can't find anything to nitpick about it. The typography is so elegant, so sophisticatedly crafted. We have this great symmetry of the Brooklyn Bridge and the figure centered like that. There's such great romance and color. I like the little touch of a novel put in perspective on the promenade there, and the walkway. The frame. Okay, if I was to nitpick on something, I'm not sure if the frame is entirely necessary. The frame around it, that border, gives it this turn of the century elegance. I think the cover would still work if you strip that away. Again, this trying to achieve this sweet spot, this minimalism. Can you strip elements away, and does it still work? And I think if you took away that the flourish, the decorative border, I think it would still work, and maybe even be a little cleaner.
Cool.
But overall, that's just a really strong cover.
Yeah. And yeah, we're finishing strong on that one. And that brings us to the end of that. Thank you, David, for joining us here. In the comments, I'm going to post the link to David's profile here on Reedsy. He is one of the many fantastic, talented, experienced book cover designers we have over at Reedsy, who are ready to work with folks on their next book. However, I've seen by your work from looking behind the scenes that you're a very busy man, David. What sort of projects are you looking for in the next half year, for example? The sort of books or the sort of projects that excite you?
I take on and consider everything, and see if it's a good fit that my talents can work with what the author is trying to evoke and trying to achieve. I lean towards fiction, styles that I can bring my sense of typography and sense of minimalism to. So I would say fiction, but I also do a lot of nonfiction as well.
Cool. Amazing. Well, thank you so much. Just as a final bit of housekeeping, while we have you here, if you could give this video a like before you head off, that'd be hugely appreciated. We have a bunch of stuff going on here at Reedsy in the coming weeks. One of the things we have going on tomorrow is a writing workshop taken by Shaylin, who is a published writer herself, and she runs a YouTube channel. She'll be talking about writing descriptions in books, giving a bit of a presentation, showing some examples. And then for the back half of the event, we're all just going to get together and do some writing. So if you tune in, it's going to look like two people on screen, just sitting in silence. But she'll be setting exercises that you can apply to a work in progress or write from scratch. Anyway, if you're finding yourself with a lack of motivation, then that is absolutely great. I think you'll love that. And coming up in a couple of weeks, we have another First Line Frenzy, which is where you submit the first line to your story, and Rebecca Heyman, one of our editors, will critique it. They're a lot of fun, just like these. This time there's a special one where you can send in the full first paragraph. I think I'm capping it at 1,000 characters or something, but You'll be able to send in a bit more substantive parts of your story, and then she'll break it down. They might do some live editing, and that'll be a lot of fun as well. Thank you for joining us today, folks at home, and thank you, David, so much. It's been an absolute pleasure. If you stick around on the feed afterwards, David, I'll let you know what's happening next. And for you guys at home,